Hi, I'm Phil Grandy of Phil's Gang, and I'm inviting you to my YouTube collection. And I'm going to talk today about the ridiculous Federal Reserve meeting that we had on Wednesday, which was just a absolute joke. But I want to start out with this. First, the question that's most often asked of me is if QE with zero interest rates, if it worked. And most people say, if it did, I don't feel it. When President Obama comes out and tells us how everything is just perfect and the economy is really recovering, I just don't feel it. And why after 6 years? QE has yet to kick in to create 600,000 jobs a month instead of these anemic 225,000, mostly part-time, lousy jobs. Why hasn't it kicked in? It's been 6 years. And why hasn't productivity kicked in? And demand? Well, the answer is it was designed not to make sure it didn't kick in. Just like the Federal Reserve from its inception in 1913 was never designed to help struggling small businesses or individuals. That's right. In forming the Federal Reserve, small businesses and individuals were not even a thought, were not even part of the thought process. They were treated like a gnat that was bugging them. It was all about and only about making the very rich even richer. Now, to understand, you need to understand the mindset of the 1 percentile, the elitists. See, the 1 percentile, the elitists, due to their collective mindset, believe today, as they did in 1913, when they formed their own bank, as lenders of last resort to each other, like a club, because in their mind, the world can't function properly unless they, the elitists, the 1% class, the richest of the rich, could get richer. The elitist owners, these elitist owners of monopolies, leaders in banking, industry, commercial, agricultural, could only achieve getting richer by forming their own bank and being lenders of last resort to each other's interests, providing unlimited credit to each other. And when one of these friends were in trouble and needed to be bailed out, it would be done by this banking cartel called the Federal Reserve, which is no more federal than Federal Express. And by the way, they have no reserves. They would bail them out by buying commercial, industrial, and agricultural paper. Now, from the inception of the Federal Reserve in 1913 to QE, where we are today, there was no thought of helping small, struggling businesses on Main Street or individuals. And today, it was so laughable when we were told the reason for QE and zero interest was to help Main Street, to help in the recovery, to help the small business and individuals, help the middle class. All a lie. When any and all monetary policies were designed to protect and enrich the smallest segment of our population, the 1 percentile, including propping up the 5 largest banks that they own. Now, QE was designed not to help in the recovery, not to help small businesses or individuals. It was designed to hit small businesses. Hit them hard. The small business who create 80% of all jobs, high-paying jobs. They were hit very hard with higher taxes, higher capital costs, increases in commodity prices, increase in regulations, to create waves of layoffs and to replace the full-time with part-time, with temp jobs, substituting high-paying jobs for low-paying jobs. The idea was to shift the middle class into poverty, make them dependent on government, to become a Democrat voter. That is the idea, to shift them into poverty. Now, incomes have risen for the 1 percentile of the population each of the last 6 years by 275% a year due to the 200% rise in the stock market, or on average 30% a year. But the income for the middle class, who they pretend this is all about helping them, has declined. Now, the 1%, because of QE and zero interest, had enough money to buy key positions in the Obama administration, like Penny Pritzker, you know her, the Hyatt fortune, who bought her Commerce Secretary seat. Or how about Mel Watt, another elitist, a Yale lawyer, who bought his position as head of the Federal Housing Committee. Then you have Soros and Buffett and Paulson and others. To understand why it worked, you first have to understand with the use of QE, there comes a huge disconnect between actual corporate performance and the value assigned to the company's stock price, which is a reflection of how much cheap money can be printed and pumped into stocks, forming a stock bubble for the wealthy, for the 10 percentile, who control 80% of all the stocks. It was designed to kick in for a small segment of the population, and it did. And once corporate profits dropped from 8.4% to 2.1% due to lack of consumption, the GDP, 3%, QE and zero interest, and stock buybacks kicked in, just as planned. Incomes have risen for the 1 percentile, and as I said, each of the last years, 275%. So it has worked, but it's worked for the smallest segment of the population, the elitists, the 1%. But always keep in mind, it was never designed to help Main Street, the small person, the middle class person, and that's all we hear. State of the Union, I'm going to help the middle class. It's not designed to help them. QE and zero interest was designed to tie CEOs' compensation to stock. QE and zero interest was designed to be the greatest backdoor Wall Street bailout of all time. To provide free loans, interest-free, to the elitists, so to prop up the 5 largest banks they own. To provide interest-free loans to the carry trade, to the large corporations for massive stock buybacks. Did QE work? Sure did. For those who it was designed for, the 1%. Not for the middle class. Never for the middle class. So I hope you now understand when you hear QE and you hear the president talking how he's trying to help the middle class, that is just a lie. It's not designed to help the little person, the middle class, just the 1 percentile. And it's working just fine for them. See you on the charts.